Hello children. From the first video of this lesson, we discussed about what is Renaissance and what were the reasons that led to the beginning of Renaissance. So, today I am going to teach you how the Renaissance transformed Europe. The Renaissance affected much to transform the course of Europe. It can be described under four categories as academic renaissance, political renaissance, economic renaissance, and scientific renaissance. Academic renaissance occurred in Europe in the 15th century, can be discussed under two topics as language and literature and arts and crafts. Revival of language and literature. In the medieval period, Europeans used tribal languages. But studying the books written in Greek and Latin languages increased during Renaissance. මධ්‍යතන යුගයේදී යුරෝපීයන් භාවිත කළේ ගෝත්‍රික භාෂා. නමුත් පුනරුද යුගයේදී ග්‍රීක සහ ලතින් භාෂාවලින් ලියවුණු පොතපත අධ්‍යයනය කරන්න පටන් ගත්තා. So, learning Latin and Greek languages became a fashion. Studying books written in Greek and Latin languages, there was a revival in literature. And also there was a creation of new scholars too. So, let's see who are the authors made a great service to literature during the Renaissance. Dante Alighieri, who lived in Italy, rendered a great service to literature. Divine Commedia is one of his great literary work. Petrarch, who also an Italian, wrote sonnets for Laura. Boccaccio, also an Italian author. Let's see who are the English authors lived in Renaissance period. Sir Thomas More and Francis Bacon are two great English authors. And also all of you know about William Shakespeare. Merchant of Venice, Julius Caesar, Macbeth, as you like it, are some of his great literary work. Erasmus is a French author who lived in Renaissance period. Humanism, or considering man as noble, was made a prominent feature in the Renaissance instead of religious framework. මානවවාදය හෙවත් මිනිසා උතුම් කොට සැලකීම පුනරුද සමයේ තවත් කැපී පෙනෙන ලක්ෂණයක්. Instead of theological subjects, humanistic subjects such as literature, history, art, law and ethics were taught in Renaissance period. Arts and crafts. Florence in Italy was the birthplace of a new genre of arts during this time. So we can discuss arts and crafts under three categories as paintings, sculpture and architecture. Let's see what are the differences between the nature of arts and crafts before and during Renaissance period. Before Renaissance period means the medieval period. In the first video of this lesson, I explained you the nature of medieval period. Okay, we'll compare the nature of arts before and during the Renaissance period. They're having religious features of the artwork done in medieval period. But during the Renaissance, the artists gave prominence to the worldly affairs. පුනරුද සමයට පෙර කලා ශිල්ප ආගමික මුහුණුවරක් ගත්තා. නමුත් පුනරුද සමයේ කලා ශිල්ප ලෞකිකත්වයට මූලිකත්වය ලබා දුන්නා. Before the Renaissance, the themes of the artistic creations were Jesus Christ, Mother Mary, or popular saints. But during the Renaissance, kings, queens, princes, and princesses were the themes of creations. පුනරුද්ධ සමයට පෙර අවදියේ කලා ශිල්පවලට වස්තු විෂය වුණේ ක්‍රිස්තුස් වහන්සේ, කන්‍යා මරිතුමිය හෝ ජනප්‍රිය සාන්තුවරයන්. නමුත් පුනරුද සමයේ කලා ශිල්පවලට වස්තු විෂය වුණේ රජවරුන්, බිසෝවරුන්, කුමර කුමරියන් හා ධනවත් පවුල්වල උදවිය. Before the Renaissance, artists had been organized into grades and their creations were identified by the name of the relevant grade. But during the Renaissance, art's work were identified by the name of the artist. That means they launched their artworks by their own name. ශිල්පීන් ශ්‍රේණි වශයෙන් සංවිධානය වීම සහ ඔවුන්ගේ නිර්මාණ එම ශ්‍රේණියේ නමින්ම හැඳින්වීම පුනරුද සමයට පෙර අවදියේ කලා ශිල්පවල ලක්ෂණයක්. නමුත් පුනරුද සමයේ කලා ශිල්පවල නිර්මාණ කතෘගේ නමින්ම එළිදැක්වුවා. Before the Renaissance, the church had given the patronage for the artists. But during the Renaissance, the families who had become rich through the trade affairs gave their patronage to the artists. පුනරුද සමයට කලින් පල්ලිය විතරයි කලා නිර්මාණවලට අනුග්‍රහය දැක්වේ. නමුත් පුනරුද සමයේ කලා ශිල්පවලට අනුග්‍රහය දැක්වේ විවිධාකාර වූ ධනවතුන්. The main objective of the artworks that had been done before the Renaissance was to inspire devotions to religion. But during the Renaissance, it was to inspire appreciation. පුනරුද සමයට කලින් ආගමික භක්තියක් ජනිත කිරීම තමයි කලා නිර්මාණවල අරමුණ වුණේ. නමුත් පුනරුද සමයේ කලා ශිල්පවල අරමුණ වුණේ රසවින්දනය ඇති කිරීම. Before the Renaissance, the artists did not have freedom to do their artwork independently. But during the Renaissance, the artists had freedom to work independently. පුනරුද සමයට කලින් ස්වාධීන නිර්මාණ කිරීමට ඉඩක් ලැබුණේ නැහැ. නමුත් පුනරුද සමයේදී ස්වාධීනව තම දක්ෂතා ඉස්මතු කරමින් නිර්මාණ බිහි කිරීමට කලාකරුවන්ට ඉඩ ප්‍රස්තාව ලැබුණා. Paintings. The city of Florence was a center which produced a new art of paintings. Let's see the important painters in Renaissance period. The first one is Leonardo da Vinci. He was not only a painter but also a poet, a musician, a scientist, and a practical engineer. Masterpieces of Leonardo da Vinci are Mona Lisa, Last Supper of Jesus Christ, and Virgin of the Rocks. Michelangelo also lived in the Renaissance period. He was also a great painter as well as a sculptor and an architect. His masterpieces are ceiling paintings including Last Judgment and paintings of Adam drawn in Sistine Chapel. Other important painters in Renaissance period were Raphael, Masaccio, and Botticelli. Sculpture. Sculpturing in alabaster was a prominent feature of Renaissance period. පුනරුද සමයේ මූර්ති ශිල්පයේ විශේෂ ලක්ෂණයක් වුණේ කිරිගරුඩ භාවිත කිරීම. Michelangelo's statue of Lorenzo Medici, statue of Pieter Moses, and David are great examples for sculpture. Architecture. The special feature of the architecture in the medieval period was high roofs in the shape of pointed corn-off and pillars in the shape of pyramids. But the main features of architecture during the Renaissance period were circular arcs, high pillars, and semicircular domes according to Roman architecture. මධ්‍යතන යුගයේ ගෘහ නිර්මාණ ශිල්පයේ විශේෂ ලක්ෂණය වුණේ උල්කේතු ආකාර හැඩයෙන් යුත් ආරුක්කු, උස් වහල හා පිරමීඩ හැඩයේ කුළුණු. ඒත් ඒ වෙනුවට පුනරුද සමයේ රෝම ගෘහ නිර්මාණ ශිල්පය අනුව වටකුරු ආරුක්කු, උස් කුළුණු හා අර්ධගෝලාකාර ශිඛර ගෘහ නිර්මාණ කලාවේ ප්‍රධාන ලක්ෂණයක් බවට පත් වුණා. St. Peter's Basilica Church and Seat Church in Florence are two great examples for Renaissance architecture. Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and Raphael were the talented architects who lived in the Renaissance period. Scientific advancement. The scholars who were influenced by Greek books tended to experiment scientifically in many fields and put forward novel ideas about the universe. Nicholas Copernicus, who was a Polish, explored that the Earth is spherical and the Earth and the other planets orbiting around the Sun in circular paths. පෝලන්ත ජාතික නිකලස් කොපර්නිකස් පෘථිවිය ගෝලාකාර බවත් අනෙකුත් ග්‍රහයන් සූර්යා වටා පරිභ්‍රමණය වන බවත් සොයාගත්තා. He is recognized as the father of modern astronomy. Isaac Newton, who was a British, explored the scientific theory of gravitation. එංගලන්ත ජාතික Isaac Newton ගුරුත්වාකර්ෂණ නියමය සොයාගත්තා. Johannes Kepler, who lived in Germany, was prominent as an astronomer. He confirmed Nicholas Copernicus' theory and discovered the orbit of the planetary movement was elliptical. And also, he wrote a number of books on astronomy. ජර්මන් ජාතික ජොහන්ස් කෙප්ලර් කොපර්නිකස් ඉදිරිපත් කළ අදහස් තහවුරු කරලා ඒවා තවදුරටත් ඉදිරියට ගෙන යමින් සෞරග්‍රහ මණ්ඩලයේ ග්‍රහලෝක සූර්යා වටේ ඉලිප්සාකාරව ගමන් ගන්නා බව සොයාගත්තා. Galileo Galilei, who lived in Italy, invented the telescope and observed the objects in the sky. ඉතාලි ජාතික ගැලීලියෝ ගැලීලි දුරදක්නය නිපදවා ඒ මගින් ආකාශවස්තු නිරීක්ෂණය කළා. Because of his invention telescope, he discovered the mountains and craters on moon and also sunspots and rings of different colors around Saturn. Further, he discovered subplanets, that means the moons of Jupiter. දුරදක්නය හරහා ඔහු සඳේ ඇති ආවාට සෙනසුරු ග්‍රහයා වටා ඇති වර්ණවත් වළලු හා බ්‍රහස්පති ග්‍රහයාගේ උපග්‍රහයන් ඇති බව සොයාගත්තා. Advancement in medicine. There was a revival in the medicine during the Renaissance period too. William Harvey discovered the systematic circulation and properties of blood being pumped to the brain and body by heart. ඉංග්‍රීසි ජාතික විලියම් හාවේ මිනිස් සිරුරේ රුධිර සංසරණ පද්ධතිය පිළිබඳ වැදගත් තොරතුරු රසක් සොයාගත්තා. Paracelsus, who was a Swiss, found modern pharmacology and the methodology of diagnosis of diseases and treatment. ස්විස් ජාතික වෛද්‍ය පැරසල්සස් ලෙඩ රෝග සෑදීමට තුඩුදෙන හේතු සහ ඒවාට ප්‍රතිකර්ම අත්හදා බැලුවා. Michael Servetus, who lived in Spain, was the first European to correctly describe the function of pulmonary circulation. ස්විස් ජාතික මයිකල් සර්ටිස් රුධිරය හදවතේ දකුණු කෝෂයෙන් පිට වී ගොස් පෙනහැලි මගින් පිරිසිදු වී යළිත් හදවතට පැමිණ ශරීරය පුරාම විසිරී යෑම පිළිබඳව තොරතුරු සොයාගත්තා. The political revival. The origination of nation states during the Renaissance period was the most significant transformation experienced in the field of politics. ජාතික රාජ්‍ය බිහිවීම පුනරුද සමයේ සිදු වූ වැදගත් දේශපාලනික වෙනස්කමක්. So, what is known as a nation state? A nation state means one country for one nation. ජාතික රාජ්‍යයක් කියලා කියන්නේ එක් රටකට එක් ජාතියක් කියන සංකල්පය. ඒ කියන්නේ අපි උදාහරණයක් විදිහට ගත්තොත් බ්‍රිතාන්‍ය රටේ ජීවත් වෙන්නේ බ්‍රිතාන්‍යයෝ. ඉතාලිය රටේ ජීවත් වෙන්නේ ඉතාලි ජාතිකයන්. ඒ වගේ විවිධ ජාතීන්ට වෙන්වෙන් වූ භූමි ප්‍රදේශයක වාසය කිරීම තමයි මේ ජාතික රාජ්‍ය සංකල්පයෙන් අදහස් කරන්නේ. With the growth of trade affairs in the 12th century, a middle class was created in the society. දොළොස්වන සියවසේ වෙළඳ කටයුතුවල දියුණුවක් ඇතිවීමත් සමග මධ්‍යම පන්තියක් බිහි වුණා. The kings in the nation states obtained the assistance of the middle class and the middle class gained the royal assistance for their trade activities. ජාතික රාජ්‍යවල රජවරු තමන්ගේ පාලන කටයුතුවලදී අලුතින් බිහි වූ මෙම මධ්‍යම පාන්තිකයන්ගේ සහාය ලබා ගත්තා. ඒ වගේම ඔවුන්ගේ වෙළඳ කටයුතු සඳහා රාජ්‍ය අනුග්‍රහයත් ලැබුණා. The economic revival. The self-sufficient economy in the medieval age declined and a growth of trading happened in Renaissance period. මධ්‍යතන යුගයේ තිබුණ ස්වයංපෝෂිත ආර්ථික ක්‍රමය පරිහානියට පත්වෙලා වෙළඳාම පදනම් කරගත් ආර්ථික ක්‍රමයක් මේ යුගයේදී ඇති වුණා. The governments extended their direct support to widen the trade affairs. වෙළඳ කටයුතු පුළුල් කර ගැනීම සඳහා රජයේ ඍජු අනුග්‍රහය ලැබුණා. National trade policies and national tax policies were implemented in European countries. යුරෝපා රටවල ජාතික වෙළඳ ප්‍රතිපත්ති හා ජාතික බදු ප්‍රතිපත්ති ක්‍රියාත්මක වුණා. As a result of explorations, new routes were discovered and helped Europeans to travel east and the American countries for trading. දේශ ගවේෂණයන්හි ප්‍රතිඵලයක් වශයෙන් නව මුහුදු මාර්ග සොයා ගැනීමත් සමග යුරෝපා ජාතීන්ට පෙරදිගට හා ඇමරිකා මහද්වීපයට පැමිණීමට හැකියාවක් ලැබුණා. Usage of currency increased and loan facilities were provided by banks to businessmen for their commercial affairs. වෙළඳ කටයුතු පුළුල් වීමත් සමගම මුදල් භාවිතය වැඩි වුණා. ඒ වගේම ව්‍යාපාරිකයන්ට තම වෙළඳ කටයුතු වලට අවශ්‍ය මුදල් ණයට දීමද බැංකු මගින් සිදු කෙරුණා. Discovery of new trade routes. With the capture of the city of Constantinople by Turks in 1453, Europeans tended to find new sea routes to reach Asia to gain Asian commodities. 1453දී තුර්කවරු විසින් කොන්ස්ටන්තිනෝපල් නගරය අල්ලගත්තට පස්සේ යුරෝපියන්ට ආසියාතික භාණ්ඩ ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා පෙරදිගට ළඟා විය හැකි නව මුහුදු මාර්ග සොයා ගන්න සිද්ධ වුණා. So, let's see what are the inventions and the facts that affected to the success of discovery of new trade routes. The first one is magnetic compass. The second one is the fact that the world was a shape of a globe. The third one is the proper understanding that had been provided on the world by Ptolemy's map. Fourth one is nation states sponsored for the new sea voyages. And the last one is Prince Henry in Portugal gave a huge support to those explorative affairs. Navigators and Discoveries. The first two countries interested in navigation and explorations are Portugal and Spain. Prince Henry the Navigator, who was a Portuguese, started a school of oceanic navigation in the 15th century to train people in navigation. At this school, people were trained in subjects such as navigation, shipbuilding, studying maps, and astronomy. In 1488, Bartholomew Dias reached the southern end of Africa. There, these navigators were caught up in a storm and therefore they named that place as Cape of Storms and returned to Portugal. The King of Portugal, who considered this to be a good indication as well as a great victory achieved by the Portuguese, renamed the Cape of Storms as Cape of Good Hope. Vasco da Gama followed Bartholomew Dias' route and reached the city of Calicut in India in 1498. This was the expectations of the Europeans in finding a new sea route to Asia. Christopher Columbus, who was a Spanish, carried out an exploration in 1492 under the patronage of the royal couple Ferdinand and Isabella. He landed on the Hispaniola island in the Bahamas, situated in the west of the Atlantic Ocean. He thought that island to be India, and therefore those islands are called West Indies even today. Amerigo Vespucci discovered America. In 1519, Magellan launched his voyage from Spain together with several other ships. These navigators who traveled across the Pacific Ocean experienced severe hardships. However, after a very long voyage across the Pacific Ocean, Magellan was able to reach the Philippines. Although Magellan died in a fight that broke out with the native people of the Philippines, the rest of the crew in the fleet of ships sailed around the west of Africa and returned to Spain. Magellan's voyage helped prove the idea that the earth is spherical. Cabot brothers discovered Canada. The global trends in the Renaissance. Sculpture, paintings, literature, architecture, scientific knowledge and technology were the things that world inherited through the Renaissance. The Renaissance first started in Florence in Italy and spread throughout Italy and later in other countries of Europe. As a result of explorations, some Asian, African and American countries became European colonies. With the spread of printing industry over the world, the European thinking and their literature spread to some other countries in the world. Okay children, we'll discuss the influence of Renaissance on Sri Lanka on another video. Thank you.